requirements, the drop test. If it's a liquid, we're sealing it twice, building the pallets to their specifications, can't be too high, can't be in too big of a box, all that stuff.
E-commerce is the greatest business opportunity of our generation.
Yo, what's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Ecom Unlimited podcast. It's your host, Kaj, here as always with my co-host, Josh.
What's up, everybody?
And today we have on a guest that we are very excited to interview, Dave Harriger. He is actually the owner and CEO of our main prep center. They are actually not too far away from where I live, so I've met them in person, seen their operation, got to meet their staff. Great people, great operation. But we just wanted to have them on to share a little bit about the 3PL side of the business. But Dave actually started as a seller himself. So before we get into the 3PL side, I just want to get a little bit of your background, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. We started out as a seller in 2009. So I was working for a bank before that, got laid off in the housing crisis of 2009. I was doing mortgages. And so me and a friend went to a college and bought back textbooks direct from students. So we had cash. We set up like a tent with banners, cash for books. And so students would come up to us, give us their books. We would scan the books, see what it was worth. The first run, we just were looking them up on Amazon, seeing what we thought we could sell it for and giving them, an offer from there. Hand them cash. They would give us the book and then sold them on Amazon. So it was me and him. We went to one school. We were selling the books like in those days, we were just trying to get rid of them to clear capital. So we would sell them like that night. And it was like, it was crazy. So then we started scaling that. And started getting friends. We were young, we were in our 20s, so we had friends that could take like a week off of their job. And so he eventually ditched that business partner. He had a drug problem, so it turned into just me, scaled it to 65 colleges at our peak in the Northeast. And we were working out of this facility, selling college textbooks until about 2019, 2020. So we would peak at 3,000 books shipped a day during like peak textbook season.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was cool. And then, so it was like all or nothing though. So like, we would, seasonal. So we'd be selling insane amount of volume. And then it would die down. So, I was always kind of looking for, how to fill those gaps, which was always a challenge because I'd hire people, train them, get good people. And then, a few months later, it would die down and then pick it back up a few months later.
Well, so how was the ungating process back in the day for textbooks? Because I know now it's almost impossible for people to get ungated in the big textbook brands.
Yeah, so the publishers hate used textbooks, which is why they push digital, because they sell the book once and then they don't get any piece of the used book. So what they did back then, gating wasn't really a thing that I'm aware of back then. They would try to make counterfeit claims, and if anyone who's been around long enough knows that like Amazon, they are now, of course, guilty till proven innocent, but back then it was even worse. So if like one customer would say this was used, but you sold it as new, shut down, and since we were buying them from students, we had no receipts or anything. So we would sell everything as used, even if it was new in the cellophane, we just sell it as used just to avoid that. But they would still say it was counterfeit. So they would buy it, say it was they'd do like a test buy, say it was counterfeit. And so it happened at least twice, probably 3 times in mid textbook rush. We're selling thousands of books a day. This is our big moment. We bought these books, sometimes 6 months ago, sat on them until the kids go back to school. And we get hit with one of those and we'd be shut down for like 2 weeks, same as it is now. If you get shut down by Amazon, it's, an uphill battle to get back. And so, back then they didn't have gating, but they would make those claims. And then it was really hard to fight because we had no receipts. We were buying them from, direct from students. And so, it'd be appeal after appeal, and then they'd finally let us back on. But in a couple of cases, we kind of missed the boat of kids going back to school.
Interesting. Yeah, that would have been super stressful. So do you still have that account?
Yeah, still have same account. So we're grandfathered into a lot of ungated stuff. So that that's pretty cool. But now it seems like in the last 6 months, gating has become a huge spike. So but we still have I think a lot more clearances than probably the average account because our account's from 2009.
And do you still sell like a lot of stuff on that account, or do you just kind of keep it for just in case a good deal rolls around?
Yeah, not too much. So we do have a couple clients, which isn't ideal for us, but we do have a couple clients that will sell their stuff on our account for a variety of reasons, if it just makes sense. So we do that, but our sole focus is as a 3PL. But we do still have some connections with like local libraries. So we still have our foot in the book game a little bit. So like libraries will give us their books and we sell them on consignment for them on our Amazon account.
Very interesting. Okay.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I never thought about that before.
Now, did you ever do any of the other models with that account or any other accounts like retail arbitrage or wholesale or private label or just strictly books?
Yeah, it did it all because, that's what I was saying, like, it'd be the wild time selling all these books. And then, so like our busy time was when students would get out of school. That's when they sell us their books. And that was insane. Going to all these schools at once, handing kids backpacks full of insane amount of cash. And then the books come back and then we're trying to list them online before they go back to school. Then they go back to school and, now they're buying the books. So we're shipping the books back to students. But in between there'd be, especially, what was it? So when they graduate in May, they wouldn't be buying them again until they go back to school in September. So we'd have 4 months in between. So it was like, it got pretty slow and I'm pretty scaled. So I did all the arbitrages, mostly online arbitrage. And back then it was way different. You could do Amazon to Amazon flips. So I did a ton of those. Just trying to find ways to stay busy at that scale in between. Because, I didn't want to let people go and then hire, and then, you wouldn't be able to hire them back in 4 months because they'd find something else and then you're hiring somebody new and training them up again. So that was always my challenge. I never really fully solved it, but like, how do I stay busy full time and not be seasonal?
Right.
But I used, the arbitrages to help a bit.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So at what point did the 3PL, when did that idea begin and you said, you know what, I'm gonna go all in on this?
So I always had 3PL in mind, like from the beginning, because it was like, we're doing this at scale. Like we could easily throw someone else in the mix, especially if someone happened to be seasonal and was opposite of us. That would obviously be ideal. But even when we were at peak, you could throw someone else in the mix. But it's hard enough to run one business. It's nearly impossible to run two, at least for me. So it was just kind of an idea that never really went anywhere, but it was always in the back of my head. And so from day one, textbooks were looking like they were going to go digital. So when we started this in 2009, thought we had like maybe a year or two to ride it out. And, our overhead was very low in the beginning. We bought a couple laptops, some tables and show up at school. So we thought we'd get a year or two out of it. And it went for quite a bit. That it just kept going, but we knew that the end was going to be coming because the publishers were pushing so hard for digital, because then there's no resale. Then they get to sell brand new digital licenses every year. So that was obvious. COVID, like many things, squished it. It was like kind of like inching there. Every year our numbers were going a little bit down, but it was still viable. We still had quite a few years left. It wasn't for COVID. But then COVID came, and now if you're in a digital classroom, it makes a lot more sense to have a digital textbook. So we already had our foot luckily in the door of the 3PL. It was like, books is our thing, but like we're starting to get some clients of a 3PL, kind of making the transition. So COVID hit, and then we just all out 3PL.
So right after COVID
That's
is
really
when you
cool.
made that full transition.
Yeah, well, actually, really during COVID is when we did it, because we couldn't go to schools anymore. Which was like just a touch off on the timing, because COVID, of course, is like exploding 3PLs. Like Amazon's building warehouses all over the country. We weren't quite like big enough to really capitalize on that. We certainly got like some of the fray of it, but would have been cool to, because that was like wild times back then, because obviously online was king.
Absolutely. Now talk to us a little bit about your warehouse. Like what kind of square foot are you pushing? How big is this place?
So we have 13,000 square feet. We have it divided in two sections. Like, so behind me, this is our like FBM or direct to consumer fulfillment side. So this is like where we store our clients' inventory. And then in front of me, you can't see, but like this is where we ship and get everything into UPS, FedEx hands. So we do that for clients, and then the other half of the warehouse is FBA prep, standard stuff. Stuff comes in, we handle all the prep work, all the bundling, all the shipping creation, and send it into Amazon for clients' behalf. So those are our two main things. So basically FBM, we call it FBM, but it could be Walmart, eBay, any direct to consumer, and then
Okay.
FBA.
That's super cool. And then how long have you been there for?
So we've been in this facility since 2015, I think. So
wow.
we moved in here, back in the book days, it was way too big, but we were scaling at such a rate that we thought we'd fill it up pretty quick. So this is our second warehouse. Before that, we were actually in Philadelphia. We had this weird, it was like a labyrinth of a warehouse, because like I took like a small space because we were small, 2009, and like people kept moving out, and I kept like taking these little chunks of space, and so it was like you had to weed back, but it was like way out of the way, so the rent was so low, so it was awesome, but it was very inefficient. So eventually we had to, suck it up and get real. So now we have like a more of a traditional square warehouse.
Got it. Okay.
That's very cool.
Now, I want to point out the difference between like just a prep center and a 3PL. And I'm sure different people define it differently. But I know that there are places where, like in my mind, a traditional prep center, they only deal with like FBA prep or maybe some FBM, but mostly FBA. But you guys, like you said, you do a lot more than that. So I'm sure FBA is a big part of what you do, but you also have some clients that maybe even have their own website. You're fulfilling D2C for them. So just talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, great question. So I think that's one of the things that makes us unique, is that we do both, because most clients come to us wanting one or the other. And if I even mention that we do the other one, it's like, don't want to hear about it, not even in our radar. And then over time, it's like, hey, do you do, the other one? So it does make us unique. Most 3PLs focus on one or the other. I would say the majority of 3PLs don't like FBA prep because it's a major labor game. That's where all the cost is coming from is labor. There's not a whole lot you can certainly get more efficient. You can certainly get better processes, reduce touches, which is what we're obsessed with. But at the end of the day, like, you got to put it in a bag, you got to put the sticker in it, you got to seal the bag, you got to build the pallet, you got to do all that stuff. So it can be tough to get ahead if you're not really good at it. So a lot of 3PLs don't even take FBA prep. Most focus on like the DTC, like order fulfillment, because it's a lot easier to be efficient at that. And it's less like, the FBA prep's like a nickel dime game. Direct to consumer is more, there's more margin there.
Yeah, for sure. And in case if we have any new people listening to this, can we just define some of those acronyms, 3PL, D2C, FBM, FBA, and what they mean?
Yeah, great. So 3PL's third-party logistics. So that means, in a nutshell, we take the inventory of our clients and handle it, whatever that means for them. So most of our clients never touch their inventory, probably almost, I don't even know if anyone does. So whether it's a wholesaler or a reseller or whatever, because anyone who does retail arbitrage, it's hard for us to get involved because they would have to like package it up and send it to us. So we do online arbitrage or wholesale or private label or whatever. So they'll have it come direct from their supplier to us. So they never touch their product. And then we do whatever it is they want us to do, whether that's FBA prep, meaning we do all the prep work to meet Amazon's guidelines. So FBA prep is doing everything Amazon requires to sell on Amazon and ship it into Amazon for Amazon to later sell. So when you're doing FBA prep, your product hasn't sold when it goes into Amazon. You send it into Amazon and then Amazon lists it, but you get the Prime badge, which of course is a huge piece of it. So anyone who does FBA prep never has to touch their product, comes to us. We're labeling it, we're bubble wrapping it, we're making sure it meets all Amazon's many requirements, the drop test. If it's a liquid, we're sealing it twice, building the pallets to their specifications, can't be too high, can't be in too big of a box, all that stuff. So that's the FBA prep. And then DTC, or direct to consumer, is really selling your product any other way. So whether you sell on Shopify, on your own website, you might sell on Walmart, you might in Marketplace, you might sell on Amazon Marketplace, eBay Marketplace, and there's a million other websites. Those, of course, are the main ones. So in those cases, we hold the inventory here, sits, on pallet racks, and then each morning we'll check the orders, how many orders sold, and it doesn't matter if it's sold on eBay or Amazon or Walmart. All the orders come to us in one place. We don't even, we could look and figure it out, but we don't even see what venue it came in. They just all come to us, ship them all out, get them into UPS, FedEx, and it goes right to the customer. Advantages of the two, there's pros and cons, of course. FBA prep is FBA is great because you get the Prime badge, you send it into Amazon, your customers get it in 2 days, way less customer concerns, they get it quick. Amazon prioritizes your listing, so it's way more likely to sell. But of course, there's a boatload of Amazon fees, including shipping it into Amazon, and then their FBA prep fees. If you do direct to consumer, where you're listing it on multiple marketplaces or just one marketplace, significantly less fees, but you don't have the Prime badge. So on Amazon, depending on your listing and more importantly, the competition, sometimes you need the Prime badge.
Yeah, 100%. Now, if you were to kind of describe your ideal client, what would that look like?
Yeah, so our ideal client is small to mid-size. So we usually cap out when someone starts shipping like in the couple thousand orders a day. It gets to be a little much for us, and we'll start to refer them to a larger 3PL. So smaller to mid-size, like a real bread and butter is someone who's doing anywhere from like 500 to 3,000 units a month is solid. We can certainly handle much more than that. And doing either FBA prep or any type of direct to consumer or direct to business order fulfillment, either one's fine. If there's we certainly love clients who utilize both, and we can do like what they call trickle fill, where we hold inventory here and it's listed on Amazon and all the other marketplaces, and then the client will say, hey, send in 300 units into FBA. And then we could just send them in and do the trickle fill. That way you can manage storage costs in Amazon, and you're never out of stock, because if you go out of stock FBA, you still have your inventory here, and so like FBM, meaning fulfillment by merchant, is still in stock, and then you can also be on other marketplaces. So it's kind of like fishing. You got your fishing pole in more spots, you're more likely to get a sale. Walmart's criminally underrated. Walmart's very niche, so they crush grocery, possibly better than Amazon in some cases. We see less sales there on like power tools and stuff like that. So they certainly have. Amazon's just the behemoth, of course. But Walmart has a very large customer base, more niche towards grocery, and eBay has can be good too, especially for like used and more niche stuff. So why not list it on all of them and see what happens?
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do as well. And you guys are doing that for us too. Like we have one product where we're working exclusively with the brand, and we sent in some inventory, and it just sold way faster than I thought it was going to. Yeah. So I was like, guys, we need to list some FBM like tomorrow. So we listed some FBM, and then the rest you guys send in FBA. We're working on getting it on Walmart too. So it's just huge to be able to have that sort of flexibility with the 3PL. Yeah. And I know there are some Amazon sellers, who do their own prep, and that's great too. And part of that is because they want to have control, or maybe they've had a bad experience with a prep center or 3PL in the past. But that's one reason why I love working with you guys, because even though you're handling the inventory and I'm not touching it and have control over it myself, like the communication is still great, and it feels like I have that control because there's still the flexibility of, oh, can we put 10 of this on eBay, let's get 50 of it FBM, send in 200 FBA, and you guys are super willing to work with that, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's what we try to leverage is, we work with small and mid-sized businesses, and we're, small, probably consider a small business ourselves. So we try to leverage the communication we can do. We talk internally about, let's be open to communication and embrace communication, but let's set up processes where it minimizes the need for it. So, have things automated whenever possible. But if someone, sends a Slack or an email and says, hey, can I do this one-off thing because, sales are through the roof? Let's certainly embrace that. Where some of the larger 3PLs, just aren't going to be able to do that. And so we have 13 employees. So, any person that talks to a client knows, they likely know each other. So it's not like, hi, I'm your client. You may not know me. Here's what I'm all about. Like, we already know, off to the races. Just tell us what you need to do and we'll make it happen. So we leverage being small, but we are scaled. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for small and mid-sized sellers.
Love it. Talk to me a little bit about those internal processes, mainly just from you mentioned earlier, reducing touch points when you're prepping a product, using software. So I don't know if I had shared this with you before, but Josh and I, when we were scaling up our business, we were really focused on OA, and we did all of our own prep. So we also did prep for one other friend too. So we had a very small prep center, right?
Yeah.
So we're familiar with, trying to optimize the workflow, making sure that the product doesn't have to move too many places too many times. You're getting late, so all those things. But talk to me about at scale, because I couldn't imagine running a prep center with more than 3 clients. It sounds terrible to me, but you guys are obviously killing it. So
yeah, that's okay. That explains it, Josh. Because when I was getting set up here, I had a roll of tape, and you had PTSD from that roll of tape, and you didn't want to see it. Yeah, get that thing out of here. So, so Kiss of Death for us is our first client that we main client that we got as a 3PL was a monster of a client during COVID. They're one of the top 50 resellers on Amazon. And they have a weird niche of, they do bundles of every product you've heard of, so say Cheez-Its, they'll make it a 3-pack. And, cause no one can sell Cheez-Its at a profit on Amazon cause it's at cost. And by the time you ship it, you're done. So they make 3-packs, 5-packs, 10-packs, deodorant, any grocery item you can think of. So they have thousands and thousands of SKUs, and it's all slow selling stuff. So they would send us, 5 units of a 3-pack of Cheez-Its, 2 units of a 10-pack of deodorant. And so to be our first client, I couldn't picture a worse client to start with, but it was learn, but the cool thing is any client we've gotten since, we're hey, it's better than, better than dealing with that. So, cause they had a million SKUs, and by the time you figured out, these 3 Cheez-Its fit in this bag perfectly, this is awesome. You only have 2 more and you're on to the next one. So it was a big challenge, but they were an awesome client and they were huge. And the biggest thing with them was they were consistent because they were so big, which is a 3PL dream. But so all that to say, that forced us to have good processes because you just couldn't, you couldn't not. You had to be efficient, and you had to not be able to measure things because when you have 1,000 of something, it's worth the time to measure it, get the right poly bag, maybe even order the right poly bag in advance, maybe set up your station the perfect way. We couldn't do that because it wasn't even worth taking 30 seconds to get something set up because you only had a few of them. So we had meetings, a couple times a week of trying this, trying that, moving tables around. We had all our stations are on wheels because of them, because they would have, everything was different. So all our power set up through the ceiling with extension cords and retractable stuff, so we could move things around, depending if they had large shipments, small shipments. So, learn by fire through them, which, was challenging in the beginning. And now when we get a shipment from a client that even has 50 of the same unit, we're still celebrating that, we have so many of the same unit, because, we can actually get good at it, and get efficient, which is, the fun part of prepping is, figuring out how to make it all work and then do it 100 times or 1,000 times.
That's awesome. That's such a good story.
Yeah,
I've always wondered that too. Cause I'm like, dude, I'm never going to buy, cause we look through thousands of listings a day, looking at all these different types of variations, and you're like, oh, it's sweet. A 3-pack of Cheetos sells 10 times a month. Not even going to waste my breath on that.
Yeah.
Like, don't even bother. And then there's these other people like, oh yeah, I'll send it 3 for a month, and then I'll send it 3 of this. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. First of all, inventory nightmare, but that's just, hey, whatever works. I guess.
In your example, 10 a month, that'd be a hot seller for that client. They were in the ones and twos, So
that's crazy. I mean, now we're focusing on stuff where we can try and at least get like 1 or 2 units a day minimum. Again, we're not even doing the prep, but just from the keeping everything in stock, it's so annoying to have to monitor, to then spend time to buy something for $10 of profit if you're selling it 5 times a month, $2 profit. But again, that's a competitive moat for them, because I clearly don't want to do it, and I'm not touching that stuff, so they don't need to worry about me coming on their listings.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a smart business model. Obviously they have a ton of automation, which makes it all work, because they don't have one person looking at all those thousands of listings. So very good at what they do.
And so going back to the question,
I do have one question.
You got it, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Josh. Oh yeah, I was just curious. In terms of so let's say if someone does sign up with you, and they start using you for a 3PL, is there any what kind of software do you use, and how do you set that up? Sometimes you have running 3PLs that have their own software that you have to get used to and stuff. What software do you use, and how do you help them kind of work through that?
Yeah, great question. So, one of our biggest claims to fame is the minimal onboarding process. We've looked at some different ways to communicate back and forth of how what a client's sending us and us reconciling it, and there's software out there that does that. And we just use a Google Doc to keep it as simple as possible. There's only a couple columns, and so that keeps it simple, and we can use that Google Doc to upload directly into Amazon to start creating the shipments. And so it's just insanely simple, and there's only a couple columns you need. You need your SKU and you need your condition. Those are really the 2 main ones. That's really all you need. Most people put a couple other ones in there. The quantity, of course, is helpful, so we can reconcile. If you tell us you're sending us X amount of units, then we can make sure we got X amount of units. The title is nice too, but really we just need quantity, or we just need SKU and condition, which is typically new. And then we can take it from there. We'll use that to reconcile, hey, did we get, the amount that we are expecting, and then we can create it on Amazon. And so most people love that.
Awesome.
Everyone knows how to use Google Docs, and it's only a couple columns. There's a bunch of columns on there because everybody likes to put some different things in there.
Sure.
And especially if you're bundling, there's a section for there, it's a 2-pack, 3-pack, whatever. And then we use Scan Power, which is kind of a lot of people use Inventory Lister.
Inventory Lab,
works similar. Inventory Lab, it's similar to that. But our clients don't have to use that at all. It can be used to monitor our progress, but most people I don't even think do. But because you can see a lot of it on Amazon, but it shows us it shows the client in real time, where we're at. Did we receive it? Are we actively working on it? How far along are we? Is it shipped into Amazon? Some of that stuff you can see on Amazon directly, mainly if it's shipped in. But you don't have to. You have to get on Scan Power initially to give us the permissions to work on. It's very limited permissions to be able to work on the client's Amazon account. So you just go in there. It takes a few minutes to sign up. It's free to clients. You're just a sub user on our account. And then up to the client if they want to use that to monitor progress, but don't have to. So the only thing a client has to use is Google Docs just to let us know what's coming.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's so simple. I love that.
Yep. Yeah, we have our own internal process too to match that. We have a folder that's a shared folder with my team and your team, and then whenever we have a PO come in, we just fill it out. My admin uploads that into the folder, pings you guys on Slack, and says, all right, this is coming, this is when it should be there, and then pretty much good to go from there on our end.
Yeah, you got really good, smooth systems in place. which helps minimize, there's really not a ton of back and forth except when, we're celebrating that you ran out of stock on something.
Exactly.
Yeah. For the most part, you keep it real smooth, which is fun.
Yeah. I try my best to do that, again, because we had our own prep center. So it's like, I was on the other end. And so my friend, who I'll gladly throw it under the bus, but I'm not going to say his name.
Nice.
But we go back and forth with this all the time as a joke. But he was a terrible prep client because he would send us stuff and forget to fill out his Google sheet. So I'm like, I got stuff coming in. I don't know what it is. I'm searching for it on Amazon. I'm getting ASINs back and forth. It was terrible. So it's like, I know that sucks. So I'm like, I don't want to be that kind of client for you guys.
Yeah, I owe that guy. He showed you what not to do. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Going back to the question Josh asked about ideal client. So I'm also assuming, right, you guys work with wholesalers, private label guys, and OA, or is there one of those that you prefer over the other, or does it not matter?
I mean, we certainly deal with all those categories. Online arbitrage is great, as you know, to get started. It can be difficult to scale, as you know. So just for that reason, I'd say it's not ideal, just because it caps out pretty quick, but it's a great way for someone to get started in Amazon. I would imagine, if you polled non-brand Amazon sellers how they got started, it would be, probably RA, retail arbitrage, or online arbitrage. So it's cool because it gets people started, which I believe is how you get, that's like your ideal client, transitioning away from retail arbitrage into the wholesale space.
Yes. Yep.
So, and which is a great place for us to step in, because to get a little off topic, but our ideal client isn't the person who's like, and we get this a decent amount, like, hey, I saw a YouTube video and I'm about to open up an Amazon account. Can we use your services? It's a little too early in the process, because, we can start pretty small, but, we can't help set up an Amazon account and learn like the very basics. So retail arbitrage is cool because it gives someone an opportunity to learn those basics, low risk. Certainly don't recommend returning stuff to like Walmart, but it is in someone's back pocket. It buys some stuff, it doesn't sell, return it. So very low risk way to get your feet wet and then start transitioning into wholesale. Wholesale and like working with brands is more ideal because it's more scalable. Especially if you're working with a brand, that gets to be fun because you're helping, it becomes a passion project, and watching a brand grow, and our client is the brand. And so, when someone's reselling a brand, that's certainly cool, and we're helping make money and we're all for it. But when you're helping a brand, grow, and you're a part of that growth, it's certainly fulfilling. So, working direct with brands, working direct with wholesalers, or people buying wholesale is definitely better because it's scalable, and more room to grow. But we do work a lot with retail arbitrage as well.
So for those retail arbitrage clients, are they just dropping off like in their car, or are they packing up and shipping it to you?
Yeah, I realized as soon as I said that, not retail arbitrage, online arbitrage. Okay. So they'll have it come direct to us. Yeah, I don't think we've ever had a retail arbitrage client, because they would have to, like you said, they'd have to be local to drop it off, which would certainly work, but very limited radius of client base, so we haven't had that.
Got it. Okay. And wait, Josh, it looks like you were saying something, but you're muted.
Sorry. No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So I, again, kind of sticking in the topic of workflow for your operation. Is there something that you found, like, as you scaled, has been like the main bottleneck, and how have you solved that?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge of a 3PL isn't necessarily like a bottleneck along the process, although the actual prep, there's three stages of FBA prep. It's like the receiving of the products, getting them in, counting them up, getting them into our software, saying how many we have, getting the labels printed out. That's one step. The biggest time crunch is the actual prep, putting it in the bags, putting in the bubble wrap, sealing it up, getting the stickers on. The physical prep is the biggest chunk of that. And the third step is what we call shipping, which is taking the prep stuff, putting it into the boxes, labeling each box with Amazon's labels, and then building pallets and labeling the pallets to Amazon standards. So the prep's the biggest chunk of that, but I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it's certainly a bottleneck, but our employees are cross-trained. So like, if there's a lot of prep to be done, then the receiver and the shipper, chip in and help with the prep. So the prep's the biggest chunk, but it's just a natural thing, and everybody helps prep. We don't have a whole lot of role of just prepping. So it's kind of like, the receiver preps, the shipper preps, and then, ships from there. The biggest, like, kind of bottleneck as a company, or the biggest challenge, is just the Murphy's Law of like getting a ton of volume 1 week, and then the next week, being a little bit slower, which is just, ask any 3PL, and that's going to be their biggest challenge. Just if you have two or three of your biggest clients are probably going to, just the way it works out, they're all going to send you this stuff on the same day. It's just, the lemons life hands you, but, and so we don't use temps, which is what I think is a selling point, but, it can be a detriment, for when that happens, but we value quality over speed. So, our newest employee as of today has over 2 years experience with us. And so everyone's cross-trained, everyone has a ton of experience. And so, if someone's off, we're not slowed up by that. We just, have someone else fill in that role, which is a big, benefit for us. But not using temps, we don't have those rookie mistakes. We don't have, someone first day on the job doing, anything, because we don't do that. But because if the challenge with temps, and most 3PLs use them, is if you make one mistake, like anything, you make one mistake over and over, and you send it into Amazon, and you might do that for a few weeks or possibly even months until you get feedback from Amazon that it's screwed up, and then all that stuff's still going in. And it could be something as simple as a label, not being horizontal on a bottle, like they went, they went the other way
around it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's
we
an
made
easy
that
one
mistake.
to make. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's the rookie mistakes that we don't use. So, that's the biggest challenge is, the high volume times is always going to be followed by the low volume times. And so, we don't lay employees off, which is why, we have that tenure. And so it can be a challenge when you're a little bit slower, and don't have a full workload, but still trying to still giving employees their full 40 hours. So, trying to stay consistent and, with workflow is the biggest challenge of us, and I would imagine any 3PL.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, but I definitely can see the value in building that long-term team and keeping the A players around versus having a rotating cast. It's harder, like you said, just to manage quality control.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so talk to me a little bit about well, I guess you've never used a prep center, so obviously your answer is going to be biased, but like why someone should use a prep center or a 3PL versus doing it in-house themselves, especially for someone new.
Yeah. So, I mean, if someone's brand new, they should probably do it themselves, which does stink to say. And in most areas of business, I would say don't bother learning things you can hand off. But in this case, like maybe there's a prep center out there that deals with super small stuff, but we do tend to be one of the prep centers that deal with the newer sellers. But if someone's doing 5, 10, 50 units a month, it can be tough to. We personally can't work with that small. So to get started, and like we said, most people are doing online arbitrage or retail arbitrage. You get started, buy those couple units, send them into Amazon. Learn the nuances of Amazon, and then switch over to a prep center once you start to scale a little bit. But once you do start scaling, then you want to get out as soon as you can. Like personally, if I was getting started, I'd be knocking on the 3PL's door, like, when can you take me as soon as possible? Because like any business, you guys are entrepreneurs too. Like, if I live by the saying, if you're working in your business, you're not working on your business. So if you're putting things in bags, that's the easiest thing to outsource. But anyone who's running their Amazon business, they're going to be the only person that can go out and find product. They're going to be the only person that can make relationships with wholesalers. They're going to be the only person that can work through issues with Amazon. And so if you're getting bogged down, bubble wrapping something to save 15 cents, then you're tripping over, whatever that saying is, tripping over dollars to make pennies, which I know firsthand. As a new entrepreneur, it's so tempting to do that. When we first started selling books, we were selling them like in the beginning, we were selling them the same day, and to save 8 cents and probably back then 5 cents on a bubble mail or on a poly bag, we were going to grocery stores and getting brown paper bags and cutting them and wrapping the books in that, taking probably 3 minutes to wrap a book to save 8 cents. And if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, like, you could be out buying books right now, and those textbooks are $100, $150 at best. Even like a smaller one was like $20, $30. So you're spending 3 minutes per book to wrap a book when you could be out buying more books. That 8 cents a book is worth it. It'd be worth 5 times that. So when a lot of newer sellers come and they've never worked with a 3PL, it's like, oof, it's free for me now. If I go with a 3PL, it's going to cost me money and my margins are tight, which is certainly true. But what could you be doing with that at a time? And if the answer is there's nothing else, like I don't have enough, it's not holding me back, then keep doing it. That's probably actually a great rule of thumb that I just talked myself into. If you have the time to do it. But as soon as it's holding you back, get it off your plate. That's the easiest thing to get off your plate, is having someone, not to diminish what we do, but putting stickers on things and bagging things is something you can pass off. There's not a ton of things in business that you can easily pass off and trust that someone else can do it as good as you. But that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, that well said. And that's exactly what happened with us. And so, quick funny story, and then we can wrap up after this. When we first started doing wholesale is when I reached out to you guys. And like I said, we were doing all of our online arbitrage prep ourselves, and we knew that we needed a prep center for wholesale because we had tried to prep a pallet once before. We were working out of Josh's garage, and the driveway's super steep. Getting the pallet in and out was an absolute disaster. We had requested a truck with a lift gate, then a truck without a lift gate showed up. It was just a nightmare. And we're like, there's no way we are ever prepping a wholesale pallet ourselves ever again. we need a 3PL. So that's kind of what prompted us to look for a 3PL. But then as we continue to scale, we also realized, just like what you were saying, it's like, okay, the prep that we are doing is something where it's holding us back from a time perspective. And I know that we can pass this off and have it be done just as good, probably better than what we're doing ourselves. And the cost is not that much more expensive, if not the same as what it was if we were doing it ourselves.
Yeah. I've never heard of someone going backwards and saying, I'm with the 3PL, I'm going to go back to doing it myself. Once it's off your plate, it's gone forever. And there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally so freeing. It is incredible. Dave, where can people find you on the internet, and how could they get in contact with you if they want more information?
Yeah, website's theswifthouse.com. And my email is dave@theswifthouse.com. So just reach out through email. We can certainly get the conversation started.
Great. Yeah, we'll put that
Beautiful.
info in the description of the episode.
Link should absolutely be in the description here. Well, Dave, thank you. And thanks all for listening. If you got value from this episode, give it a like and subscribe to Ecom Unlimited so you can stay updated on all of our new content. And we will see you on the next one.